Okay, so for the remainder of this video, I'm going to be talking with my mouth covered and then do sign language whenever I'm not covering it. Actually, no, that's a lie. Okay, I'm sorry. What you're going to notice is that the earlier part of the video seems really scatterbrained and even irrelevant to what I'm about to talk about, which is indeed the title, which, as you heard it right, or read it right, is the pros and cons of gratitude and narcissism. So yeah, like the earlier part of the video, when you heard that song over as if it was a placeholder, or even the weird things I was saying in the text of that song. And even after that song, and seeing this, like, background, and hearing me talk about doing sign language after covering my mouth, and covering my mouth to talk, and all that, you know, it's trying to illustrate my point of the weird connection. It's actually kind of like with the entire point of this video. It's like the interconnectivity of these things, like this, like knowing that you don't have to only see good and bad or bad and good, but like also the ideals and connections you can make all the time. I'm trying to learn a certain life skill, by the way, in real life, known as in my understanding it as disconnection, ignoring, and stuff like that. It's like I don't mean to define it only like that, but it's like I think for disconnection is more like I'm trying to have it as more of a sea of equivalent benefit for certain things happening in my life. Not just the bad things, but like even just as a good example to see if I can use it in the right hands or I can do something with it. But yeah, onto the video. So like, with the funny thing of this title, the video, not just the title you saw at the beginning of the video about the how no one knowing what you're doing is a good thing, but the title of this video being the pros and cons of gratitude and narcissism. People only see bad things in narcissism on a very this undismantled that's not a word, whatever. People see narcissism as only being bad. People see gratitude as only being good. There can be controversies in both that have nothing to do with the controversies that I would try to expose or debunk. But that's the idea, is that what's the point of making an entire title like that if it takes out of context all the bad you see in narcissism and all the good you see in gratitude, and not being polarized or even being off-center with those things, but just the title seems really contradictory or even just weird. It's like you never need to see stuff like that. It's in a way it's kind of clickbaity, because it's like, yeah, I better be able to back that up now. But it's like why would you group that all together in the same sentence? Like, why would you say pros and cons of gratitude and narcissism if you know that one or the other has to only be one of those things, respectively? And then it's like, okay, but then explain why they have either one of those things, and how they're interchangeable, and how they're even being able to compare and contrast them, you know, stuff like that. But I will start by saying that the obvious things about gratitude being good is the what I call decent amounts of competence and reckoning. And what I mean by that is that gratitude, among other things in life, are very underrated. They're simple and easy, but people overlook that a lot. And the funny thing about this whole video is that you will see that even the obvious things I explain I'm bringing light to in a very unique way, and it's that's why you need to keep watching. I mean, I'm sorry, now I'm being narcissistic. But yeah, just people, including me, have overlooked gratitude, because at first when I looked at gratitude, I was like, okay, I'm going to be grateful just to see if I know what the good things are and able to distinguish them from the bad or whatever. I'm going to be grateful because I know how to, and I'm going to be grateful because I want to see if I am being a positive person. And for the most part, that was a good intention, but it's like with gratitude being simple and easy, but still being underrated and overlooked, it's like, yeah, people don't give that a chance, because they're like, it's like with other, like, I don't mean to bash like higher end education or anything like that, but like there are simple parts of education, like there are some examples I can give. Some of my favorite topics in calculus, even though I don't even study that at all, have been ones like things like topology and combinatorics. And I even remember studying like MS quantitative reasoning in high school, and that was really fun. It was it may have been easy and simple math, but it was, in the long run, it really be helpful. There are many examples of stuff like that in your life. They're like things that you wouldn't think the worst of, and I can get way deeper in this obviously, but there are things that you don't think the worst of, but you wouldn't know how to do anything about them, so you ignore them as a result sometimes. And even I have been guilty of that sometimes. I mean, how am I gonna say I'm guilty of writing something unless I know for sure I did? But that's another video. But like again, but we tend to think that things like like the example I just gave, combinatorics and AQR and topology. I don't even remember studying topology directly, but definitely combinatorics and AQR. But if I even did, but hopefully one of those things. They're just things that are really they're underrated because not only because of things that they can really do that again follow the theme of decent amounts of competence and reckoning. They're not only able to put up a fight with higher end education, those examples alone, but they actually they're good on their own too. They don't have to be like the Titanic where they're like legendary for being a solo, but that's another video again. Oh my gosh. There are things that you don't give a chance because you think that they're not going to be worth it because they're too easy. And I've encountered this before. I've even encountered things where I didn't think something felt right, but it was still worth it. And my intuition and instincts were telling me something else that I should have actually already known something better about. And so in the sense, my intuition and instincts were incorrect, and my frequency was incorrect, and even my heart was incorrect. And I don't know how that happens. And maybe I don't know how my emotions work. I bash that all the time. I'm always saying that I'm not an introvert. I have a toxic relationship with creativity. I don't know how my emotions work. Etc. It's like big things like that. When we don't know what's worth it based on what's either hard or easy or simple or complicated, then yeah, of course you're going to want to explore. But when you're grateful for things that happen or don't happen, because there's another thing with this. Like I can also again make another video about this. Choosing not to act is an act in itself, and that can be taken positively or negatively depending on the person, like that, I guess. But I can always make a video once more about things between those kinds of philosophies, between sophisticated advice and universal listening. I can make a topic back of that too, because there are creators that do both or one or the other sometimes, or neither. But gratitude can be good, if only good, because it's an underrated aspect of doing things. It's a very simple step you can take to really build your life up, but it's also good because you know that there are things that you take for granted all the time. And you don't have to say that they're a given to know that if you wanted to make an example. Because I think people who say things are a given are one of the worst kinds of people who aren't as grateful or taking things for granted. They think that you should be grateful for things that are a given, but when they explain something that's a given, I almost feel like they actually are that selfish in themselves, and I think it's really funny because they're trying to explain people who are selfish, but they end up being selfish by explaining what's a given and what's not need to be deserved. It's a very funny thing. It's like why you can't be discriminate. Like there are different ways to explain this, but like I can't be too weird about this before I remember having discussions in college about this, like where it's like you can't be racist or sexist without some kind of context that already does that to have a meaningful conversation sometimes. I didn't explain it easily before, but stuff like that. It's just I don't mean to make that too deep either, but stuff like that. Gratitude is coming hand in hand with what you would do about where you're starting from and where you want to go, stuff like that. But when it comes to gratitude only being good, I think there is some truth to that. Like I know that you're supposed to already be grateful for things that you're already high up in the first place, and grateful from a starting point that may or may not be ahead. There's a thing that again the key I just mentioned last video. Take inventory. Who explains the idea the poverty? I call it the poverty phenomenon because I remember what he actually said was the phrase. But I call it the poverty phenomenon, where even if you are not, we see mediocrity. Not only do we seem to accept mediocrity, like Digibro has mentioned before. Again, he's now DigiKnee, but we have seemed to accept the mediocrity. I agree with that, but it's also that we've seen mediocrity as an excuse to shame on people who already have enough or too little. We really should be, in a nutshell, be looking for the best in our lives. We're not gonna just settle for whatever we have, and there's a good amount of truth behind not settling ever. There really is. I believe in that kind of philosophy. I know I should never settle, even if it's worth settling in some ways. Who knows? But we do seem to be sometimes we're way too grateful for what we have. I'll get to that in the late part of the video. We're way too grateful for what we have to the point where we don't even expect to progress or change something that actually could be better in a really reasonable way. So, but when it comes to gratitude being only good, I'd say that it's a means of knowing that there's no shame in being grateful if you know that it's actually powerful as a life skill in itself. It's really powerful as a life skill. It's underrated because it looks weak, but it's actually not. With narcissism only being bad, narcissism is a very serious kind of ordeal. Like even compared to manipulation, I think it's like even when I think I mentioned manipulation one time in some of the examples I heard of it being good, but like but people have described both narcissism and manipulation not being even if they're not the same, even if manipulation and narcissism are not similar, they still have roots that make them both bad. In a nutshell, I'm getting kind of acquainted with the idea, but for narcissism to only be bad, I would say that we know that sometimes we pretty much know all the time what's in our heart, what's best, and maybe even what the right thing is. But it's like with narcissism only being bad, I would say that we just we don't want to really think of anyone or ourselves as being close-minded. I will get to the part of the video later on in this one that explains why I really think about stuff like that, but we really don't want to be the kind of person who, or even see other people as being so close-minded that they don't know any better, and any of the evils behind that or whatever. But it seems like when it comes to narcissism only being bad, it's like you don't. It seems like it's one of the best ways to connect to our shallow self, honestly, to being able to see what's bad about you, but not, or even what's bad about other people, but or whatever. But I actually don't know how to input that much about that. I don't know why. I thought I had more like experiences with narcissism and gratitude, but it's like that's another video, I guess. Maybe not. But yeah, I was trying to explain a bit for now, if even a little too long, about the only goods of gratitude and the only bads of narcissism, or how they're only good or only bad, and comparing them in the same video and contrasting them. Okay, so now to the really dark part of the video, in a really bright light, however you see it. It is about attitude at that point, but the cons of gratitude and the pros of narcissism. Okay, so like I said before, if you're so grateful that you forget to realize that even if your issues are okay, that you still could have done something about certain situations. There's a way this can be, because life is very flexible in a positive and negative way. But like, and I think even with quotes like, I'm gonna get to this later with the narcissism part, but like with if there was a quote from Kingdom Hearts that goes by the lines of a deep one obviously, but like one who knows nothing understands nothing, and I think that's connected to both of these. Like I think that's not necessarily true, especially if you can see the perspective really changes how you see that, the attitude. And I think even on that note, an aside I'll have is that I don't think people understand what positive or negative even is, especially me. But like, that kind of reveals I'm not always that selfish anyways, but you know, it's weird because I think people who define attitudes being good or bad had bad or good attitudes themselves. They didn't realize it. I've seen this happen before. Well, they think someone's being negative, including me, and we're actually being positive, and vice versa. It's very fucking weird. It's like, sorry for don't give me my copy strike first for that. Or no, I think it's not copy strike. It's something else. It's like DMCA laws. No, not that's the same thing, but the other thing. It's certain other formulations you do. But yeah, it's like for when gratitude is bad, it's obviously a bit of complacency. Maybe like the other thing I mentioned about mediocrity from Digini, or taking Venturi's idea, poverty phenomenon. I called that. If you're complacent about where you are, just to be careful with how you see your blessings, and even your seeds of equivalent benefit. You need to make sure that you know that you're grateful because you're trying to be positive, and not just because you want to be complacent with what could potentially be lazy, or even if it was hardworking or smart working, whatever they call that. I don't always believe those things, but that's another video. You still should try to make sure that you have a way to progress and balance that with being grateful, like living in the moment. I called it living in the moment versus always improving every single time. Like, there should be a balance between those things. Some people don't need to see it as black and white because they imply that one or the other is going to happen. They say that that's a given. They say that that's the kind of thing that should already be known amongst people who are considered normal or whatever. And that could still be obviously really biased and prejudiced, but like, who knows, or discriminatory. Those are a lot of words I could use that wouldn't define accurately. And that's the beauty of language, is you don't even know if you describe something well. Because sometimes people will be able to read you more than you can read yourself, and that you wouldn't even have to say a lot to get to that point. It'd be really funny. Some people are that brilliant, but that's also how brilliant you can be as well. So, you know. But you really should just make sure that you're progressing in some way, however jaded cliche that sounds. Progress in some way, but also remember to be grateful. So that's at least one thing that's a con with gratitude, is that it makes you forget. If you're really black and white thinking sometimes, even when as complicated as you could still very well be, both of those things happen to me. I've been blunt before, I've also been eloquent before, but one or the other could be my identity, who knows. I still think I'm eloquent leaning instead of blunt, but and I have a lot of polarities and shadow selves and shit like that. It's like in ways I incorporated other people's people I didn't desire as much, people that I thought betrayed me, incorporate some of their negative thinking and negative beliefs just to see if they were good and not actually bad. And that's why I'm going to get to the narcissism part of the video later on. But gratitude can be bad because you know that you can be complacent with it as a discipline excuse. I call that a discipline excuse because even discipline can be an excuse. You don't know that as well as you should. I'm sorry if I'm being narcissistic when I say that. But it's like and I'm using those words without knowing them as easily. I swear to God, I swear I looked those words up before somehow. I'll even look them up now to make sure. I'll read them before I get to the narcissism point. But like, you can't be too complacent with how grateful you are just because you want to be positive. You still have to move on. Sometimes that doesn't always mean like getting to negative atmosphere so that you can get out of your comfort zone. But there's definitely some kind of a way that gratitude can prove in some awkward ways that you're being complacent. Not to be hard on anyone, but it's like, it's just I can move on from here. I need to look this up though. Before I finish off gratitude, let's start with narcissism. Gratitude define the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for, and turn to kindness. Okay, and that's gratitude's definition. And we're about to get into narcissism, which is excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Okay, there's a pretty interesting reason why I searched up those definitions in between their transition instead of using a video editing transition. Lil kick. When I ended with gratitude and looked up the gratitude definition, I made sure that the way that I used the definition the right way the whole time I didn't know what it was. So that when I finished off the segment, I didn't just video edit, trim this whole thing away into oblivion, and you never got to see that part. Even though you're still seeing the first 2 minutes of this video, which is the weirdest parts of the whole video, even more than me being unique with these topics. But like, and by looking at narcissism before I explained it, I can now prove that I myself am not being narcissistic when I explain this. I don't know, maybe it's not like that, but just the funniest thing with narcissism is that that we're about to explain why narcissism can be good. The funniest thing with narcissism, I thought, was the funniest way to troll about it, and not even because I never thought myself as a troll ever, and there's plenty of shallow souls that can dare that or debunk that, but it's the funny thing with narcissism, and I will get into later about things like cheating and things that we should be able to discuss without having them blown out of context. And even if you don't understand what I'm saying right about that or not, just hang tight, I'll get there. But the funny thing with narcissism is that if you know that you're not a narcissist, you probably aren't one. Like, it sounds stupid, but it's true. It's like, if you know that you're not a narcissist, you couldn't possibly be one. Like, it's not simple. It's like, I think they say that crazy people don't see themselves as crazy, but like, in a narcissist's mind, they may not know that they're a narcissist, or they know but they don't care. And I think it's more likely the latter. And I said that it was impossible to be a narcissist if you knew you weren't a narcissist, but like, I think maybe I don't understand that. Maybe I failed at my lack of psychology study. Dismissal of the facts. It's I've had good friends who explained to me that I was a narcissist, and I'm grateful for that. But it's like, I just But in defense of gratitude being bad and narcissism being good, I think I would just say that it's like it's very hard to have, like I mentioned before, about racism and sexism and other kinds of discrimination. Whether that's there's been even deeper conversations about discrimination that I've seen that are pretty interesting, but it's hard to have a conversation about something that's taboo because then you can't mention it. You can't talk about piracy if you know that's bad, because then people will still see you as being unlawful, and that's a very weird thing. It's like, for me, it's very weird. I know I've been hard on things, like when I made the Wind Waker video, Kale Demos, and I described things that were disgusting, things that you had to do, things that you could not do, stuff like that. I'm obviously a very deep spiritual, philosophical person. Who knows how much farther down the rabbit hole that goes, but we need to be able to have discussions about these things. It's like, I know that I do this in a very awkward controversial standpoint, but it's potentially what I'm passionate about. Like, why would I even start these random videos all of a sudden knowing that it could be a risk? And I know that I shy away from a lot of things that convince people that I'm an introvert or whatever. And it's very weird. It's like, sometimes I'm way too open, but I'm also very cowardly. I didn't even realize how I was being an escapist until I really took it into, like, as I mentioned, like, with gratitude. I didn't even know that I was being complacent until I actually was being too grateful. I think maybe I didn't say it right yet, but like, by realizing how to be grateful, how to know if I knew what the positive and negative things were, and how I really was using escapism or cowardice if I didn't already see myself as an escapist or a coward person. I think, as a kind of a relevant point, I've seen this one guy on the semen retention journey. He actually described PMO as being a fantasy, and a lot of people do this already, maybe even me, but he described PMO as being a fantasy that he already knew was fake, and I think he was being really pretentious. I knew he had a good intention, especially for someone who's already been like over 100 days of the thing, no flapper and all that, but he was being a little bit pretentious, because I think you don't have to, not only do you not have to realize that in the moment, which is the obvious part, but you know that even outside of that blurry state, that brain fog, if you know that it's fake, you still don't have to push that agenda. You still know, even if it only was fake. If by pushing the agenda that it's fake, you make it look like you've seen some of the reality, and that may have been the point. I can get to another video about that, but without getting too much on that side irrelevantly. But with narcissism, it's like like I said, we need to be able to have discussions about these things. Like, I've only seen some videos about how people have encountered narcissists and lived with them, and we all know what these are. We've seen the what is his name? Nick, I forget. Some of these creators, like Nick Develia, I think, yeah, that's his name, and some of these other smaller and bigger creators talking about, I've lived with a narcissist. It's a personality disorder that's very dangerous. You may not be able to get out of it for the rest of your life. All this other, I'm not gonna say jargon because I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I need to make sure I know what jargon means before I say it. I thought it means like things like gamut. Actually, I could say gamut, but define. Come on, boys. And it's one. Special words or expressions that are used by a particular profession or group and are difficult for us to understand. I swear I wasn't doing that this whole video. Well, maybe. And if by reading that I don't understand, that maybe I'm a narcissist. Oh, okay. But, okay, Manny Diavalia and some other creators. They talk about how their experiences with narcissists have changed them and how they saw the world differently. And that's a very cringy way to see it. It's like, yeah, it's for me that's disturbing. And I'm the guy who's unique. So of course I'm a guy that's unique. So of course I would be disturbed by that. But it's like, but when you define, like, I was about to make this video about perspectives over experiences. That was probably gonna be a bit about ageism, but when you define, like, someone had a positive impact on you, I know this is sort of equivalent related, but like when you say that a positive influence came from something that you didn't understand and you still don't know how to understand it, it's like, of course it's gonna have a positive impact on you, even if you only chose that. But it's like, in the specific context of knowing that these people were affected in both a good and a bad way, and they ultimately chose the good way, they may not understand why it was still bad in some other areas. They may not even understand why the good things they chose to be positive about were still good. And I think that was the whole point of this entire video, was to explain that. I've even mentioned this before in other years, but like maybe not in content these videos, but like it's if some people are familiar, I dare say that yeah, the things like I said, like why good things to be bad, why bad things to be good. And that was kind of the entailment of this video. I don't know if that's too personal for anyone else, but it's if you want me to cut to some straight points, I will say that one thing I think that is good about narcissism, despite the people who are saying that it's a huge defective mental disorder and can really affect you just as badly as manipulation, if not other things. But I think because when manipulation is also just as bad, if not worse, because it shows that you still have a controlling factor in your ego or whatever. And obviously narcissism is connected to ego, but like manipulation is connected to needing control or power or something. It's like maybe something I don't understand even, like as complicated as you guys I could be. But one thing I will defend about narcissism, and I really should not care what other people think about this, as far as criticism may have ruled my life, maybe already, but one thing I will defend about narcissism is not just being able to talk about these things in a nutshell. Like cheating, like with cheating, you can't even talk about it because it's bad, only bad. But like, I don't think, and maybe even connected to that point too, I don't think that even real narcissists are people that are in the only bad shade of their shadow self. I think even the people who have dealt with narcissists, I'm sorry Matt Davaley, I'm sorry other creators, but even people who have dealt with narcissists who aren't actually narcissists themselves, when they deal with those people, they have shadow selves that even they're not confronting. And I've seen this on Quora, both the psychopathic, self-observant people and the actually smart people and the prisoners and all that. I've seen this happen. It's like they know what they're doing, whether they have a good intention or not. The psychologists who have covered this, they very well might have shadow selves. We all do, but they, particularly in my example, they might have shadow selves that they're not paying attention to because they're just trying to focus on the topic, and that's what they're paid to do. That's also what they're meant to do. But it's like they'll be like, oh, but this narcissist, their whole lives never had to learn their lesson, and that was kind of the point. But man, if I ever wanted to be so controversial for the sake of controversy and not regret it, I would just say that dude, if Taken Venture was watching this, oh my gosh, the psychology of narcissism isn't enough. You need to look at the people who are also criticizing that too. You need to look at the psychologists. You need to look at the people who are looking at narcissism and saying that it's interesting, and determine for yourself if those people too have something to hide. And it's really weird. We all have darknesses, we all have lights, but it's like it's pretty sad if you only think it's obvious enough to pay attention to the narcissist and whatever. It just makes me kind of sad. It's like, you know that these psychologists and other psychopathic people have different kinds of lights and darks, and it's interesting. I with the psychologists, I was just mentioning how they could have darks that they're not paying attention to. The psychopaths have lights because I think I've heard some really good advice from actual self-aware psychopaths, and I don't mean to make this too controversial on YouTube, but it's like if it isn't ready, but where meditation was hypocritical for some of them, I can relate to some of that, as crazy that and horrifying as that sounds. But I still meditate anyways. I still meditate and it helps me. If I have to clarify that, but it's like but I can relate to some of those issues. I can relate to this idea. One of the scariest things that happened to me with meditation was that it isolated my problems and it made it where I didn't believe in the things that it resulted in, even if they were only good things. And that's the whole point of this video, was like talking about good things that could be bad things that could be good. And yeah, it can be really taken out of context, especially with unlawful things. I'm not going to break the law personally, but just okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. I can edit that out. But if anything, but I'm not going to do anything bad. I'm not a bad person, but we need to be able to talk about these things. We need to be able to think about the things that are, especially the polarized things, like the things that we know are only good or only bad, if they actually are, and be able to bring them up, even if they're monotone or not any of my business, that's another video. But it's it makes me sad. It's like I will bash this one more time. When I hear that some people get into psychology for a profit and not for an actual benefit to society, that's the first time I've heard that happen. But then it makes sense, because it's like, yeah, there's a lot of careers you can get into that make profit and not so much to help people. And there's a lot of selfish people out there. There's a lot of passionate people who are positive influences in life out there. And all those things connect. All the positivity isn't just about gratitude. The arrogance isn't just about narcissism. And I guess I would dare say free speech isn't just about polarity. And we can get to if you don't have to get into my content to figure out things about like duality and law of attraction and all that. But it's like, my last point about narcissism was that if I was going to continue this for another 8 minutes, I very well might for a conclusion, but to make 40 minutes again, my 15-40 rule. Was that narcissism, as much as it can only be bad, as much as it can only be tragic and somber, I'm not going to stop. Like, I don't have to say attack, but like I'm not going to stop trying to push away from my passion and my truths. And I know that that's gonna sound stupid, because I don't even use alt tech anymore. I don't even use those crazy websites for blockchain or whatever. I don't use them. I don't use those free speech platforms. I use the ones that I'm given for the heck of it. I'm trying to be as well centered as I can possibly be. This is why I don't even do controversial things. I don't do this whole video was controversial, but I don't do I don't rush and haste into things that I know don't have to only be good. That was the point of this video, was that I know there are some things I do, like the senior retention thing, that I know will benefit me, but I'm not so desperate for them that I only think they're good. I know that there's dark sides to them. I know that there's I know no topic will only be good for me. That's at least my decision. There are some other controversial commutes that could also be good or bad, but that's up to me to decide from my own judgment. I'm just saying that with gratitude and narcissism, the reason I compared them in this video wasn't just to show you that compare and contrast is a very valuable tool, not to just show you that analogies and super senses and all these other things I learned a long time ago. They're not just valuable tools, they're things that you can actually use to defer for yourself what actually is necessary and what you can actually learn from things, especially with my sifting strategy I can mention in another video. That's like 10 video ideas, I just came up with one. Okay, but like the sifting strategy, which is, if I've mentioned before, it's basically to determine for yourself different kinds of advice that you want to accept or ignore. And I'm already currently, again, learning a certain life skill that I call disconnection, which is to basically save your energy, even if you don't agree with it philosophically, I guess. If you don't agree with saving your energy in certain ways, but you do, it's maybe connected to the specialism of no-tasking, but it's saving your energy by disconnecting for things that may or may not be worth it. The obvious part of that is things like abstinence from PMO, but then it gets hard from that point, I guess, a little bit, because if you can only prove that one or two things is definitely bad for you, then maybe there's a shortage in how you're confronting your issues. And that's similar with me, I guess. I can only look at my own issues very narrowly sometimes, and that's sometimes weird. Again, with being black and white or complicated at the same time. But yeah, I think we need to be able to look at things with a different perspective sometimes. Like in the Big Hero 6 movie, I don't think all my friends really, I don't think anybody, even including me, looks at anything and expects. I mean, I do everything for a reason. I do everything very deeply, but I don't think anyone expects to encounter certain things and be like, okay, now that has great significance and meaning behind it, and I don't have to use that right away or even know it's there. But yeah, like with Big Hero 6, I can't blame any of my friends or enemies or colleagues or family, or I don't know. I can't blame any of them for my own mistakes, but I certainly can't blame them for things that they may already know and still didn't happen to use, because I think I'm still on the line with things like experiences betray the instances, because and in line with the counters, these video titles I came up with before, it was like, I know that there's meaning behind them. They don't have to be important to be significant and stuff like that. It's like, these connections I build, they can still be disconnected, is what I'm trying to say. They can still be disconnected. They can still have some good light and some bad light with this connection, and reconnection or more connections, interconnectivity, respectively. They don't have to only be good or bad. With this connection, I was trying to learn how to basically be someone who could save his energy and hopefully ignore things if they were actually worthy of those things. Like, I've seen a lot of betrayals, including my own, where if something was ignored for a bad reason or connected for a good reason, it still didn't have to only be like that. But when they were like that, it was still pretty terrible. And or good, who knows. But it's just like but back to the video. I have 35 minutes recording, 15 minutes, so that means there'll be just another 3 until I have to finish. Okay, so to recap, gratitude is good if you don't get complacent. Narcissism is bad if you don't let it ruin your life. Even if it's permanent, I need to do more research on that. Well, like, gratitude can be bad if you, again, are complacent, but you at least need to make sure that you are grateful because you knew that you were trying to be positive. And if you knew what positive or negative was, then that's a good benefit of gratitude, but just don't be complacent. Narcissism can be good if you don't know, again, what is positive or negative, but especially if you focus on shadow self, then even the darkest depths of selfishness can teach you what really is positive or negative. And that's a very, very funny thing. Imagine if a narcissist person learned how to be grateful, and a grateful person just looks at that and they're like, then you never were a narcissist. No. Because, like I said about the psychologists, you don't know about their dark selves. You're just paying attention to what they're saying about their work. And it's like, we don't need to just focus on the topics. I've had very dark thoughts about this, but like important ones too, important like deep discussions, like about how there are some cultures we have, like with even with interdisciplinary things, like when we know that we go to a anime convention for the anime convention, and we may be able to remodel it or even use sustainable architecture to make it different, but we don't ever. I have really complicated thoughts about stuff like that. Very interesting ideas, but like, you basically we just need to have conversations about these things. Some of them don't have to happen. Some conversations don't really need to happen. It doesn't have to always be Murphy's Law. We don't give a shit about anything we do, and sometimes we shouldn't have to give a shit about what we do. But it's like, I'm diving deep now. I know I talked about a lot of heavy things here for 40 minutes straight, but it's like, when else would I have been able to do it? Just like not even YOLO, but more like you have to go all the way. I just wrote it down over here on the opposite of make the right choice. I wrote go all the way, and either one of these things. No, that Tasha No Fat 2021 or senior retention. Either one of these things is. I showed this one in the other video. I wrote this tonight. Either one of these things can still be useful for me. I know that it's not as blunt as there's no right or wrong, or that there only is a right or wrong, but it also could just be that I didn't even know any better, and I could be just as ignorant. Who knows? If I'm going to be backing up narcissism and debunking gratitude, then of course I'm going to be the kind of guy who doesn't know anything. It's just like, I mean, I call it delicate wisdom when I mentioned some things on philosophy and law of attraction, whatever. But it's just, I mean, you take this with a grain of salt. I'm just a guy in there and talking about really deep topics in a very simple way, or vice versa, talking about simple things in a deep way. But it's just, at the end of the day, I just wanted to bring up that if you really thought, and this is probably the first time I brought up like this, but like, if you ever thought that something was not meant to be the way it was, even if it worked, because this is kind of a bash on automotive, but even if it works, don't fix it, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But like, still, why do you think some engineers take things apart just to see how they work, and not even beyond that, just to be curious? That's the creative part of things. It's like, I don't think there's a disconnect between creativity and logic. I just think that there's things that we don't consider, even in the creative world. I've seen a lot of negative people in the creative world, and they're not considering things logically, and that's the obvious thing. But I mean, even logical people who aren't as imaginative because they don't think that their philosophy is meant to be broken. I understand that, but it's like, I think I do. But and again, the logic creativity thing can be another video. And I'm not gonna probably trim this video anyways. I'm probably not gonna even trim this parts I said that were really real off center. to say the least. But the last 30 seconds I'll put is that, yes, I'll shut in my butt like that, I'm sorry. But we need to have these discussions. We need to know what is out there and what we can do about it. But also, if it was meant to be taboo or mandatory in any sense of that, I have made videos like that about that, stuff like that, but like, and about video games and all that. But like, we need to be whatever. We just go past this 40 minutes. The connections that I'll make, you don't have to make. I'm just making them because I know that they can be made, and they're not entirely abrasive of Murphy's Law, but it's also because I'm trying to be courageous. I'm just trying to be myself and not care what people think, even if I still have to every once in a while. But like, it's a very the go all the way or make the right choice thing over here, but I kind of wanted to go all the way with this one. This is sometimes I don't even know what all the way even means, so I do a big thing and it's actually a little thing, vice versa. If this was too deep, I'm sorry. Maybe not as much, but that's kind of even why I made this whole 40+ minute video, was to just dive into a topic or two, compare them in a way that wasn't necessary, but still do it in a way that proves that it's existing in a way that you had to deal with. And if you did watch this whole video, thank you. I know it's kind of long for more than half an hour, but for one that I didn't even edit, that I can't claim now because I'm not done recording yet, but it's a pleasure. I just take it what you will. I'm not trying to elongate the video, but I just wanted to see if I was clear with that. The reason I'm not trimming this is the same philosophy I had for other videos, but particularly for this one, is to prove that I'm not actually being selfish with that. And with the gratitude is what the first 2 minutes are for, is to prove that I'm not wasting your time. And then it's like it's very deep. I think with if I can go deep with gratitude and narcissism, then you know that I am a grateful person and I'm not a narcissist. You will know that by heart. You'll know that I didn't waste your time, that I didn't elongate something. If I had to make a short video and get straight to the point and not waste your time with other things, then of course trimming would come in, but and of course not talking about controversial things would come in too, but yeah, I can end it. But until we get to 45, which I kind of want to do, I'll do it with 43 then. Okay, maybe with 43 and a half. Okay, well, I just want to say for the last minute, I don't have any expectations that I don't have to have. I have expectations to grow, but I don't have expectations to have anything maybe too materialistic. I can still be relatable. The whole thing about stretching my limits and trying to see what gets beyond my comfort zone, especially with stuff like this, because this feels comfortable to do, but I know it'll be heck like weird to just post this and be like, yeah, that was normal. No, I know this is crazy, but it's like I know that it's not natural to just say, oh, you can compare and contrast two different things that have nothing to do with each other, and see if you can say pros and cons when they could only be good or bad. That was my determination, was to see. I might make another video about determination later, about like how some inspirational ideas lead to determination, not just from anger in a good light, but even from underrated stuff in a bad light, which should have already been good. I'll make another video about that. But this so I'll just say stay still because someone's on the move, and I had to bring this up. I wasn't even desperate. I think I looked desperate in the last video, but I had to bring this up because rather than being silent for 7 minutes 20 seconds, I talked about deep topics for 45 minutes, and I don't regret that because I know that this will get some backlash in some form eventually. But even if it does, I don't regret it because I know that I'm not really stuck in a hole, even if I act like I am. But but this is a really good trial for me to figure out if I know like what's best for me and what I can really do about things. I know that the title's clickbaity. I might not even have a good thumbnail or even one at all. All Jen. Bless the Lord. But whatever I'm acting fake like that, what I just did there was actually fake. I'm sorry. But even some things in the last video, when you look at the world and you think that something is meant to be simple or complicated, I want you to really ask yourself if it's just because of the standards you set for yourself, or if it really is a fact. I think many people, including myself, even when we judge the facts, and I think people assume that they don't judge the facts, but they don't really mean that, and I that really drives me crazy. It's like, it grinds my gears when they think the only thing they don't do wrong is judge facts, and I'm pretty sure that explains that they do judge facts. I think that you can really make or break your situation with your attitude, and even that can be taken out of context. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, but it's like you just need to make sure, in some degree, that you're able to ask yourself these questions, and you're able to be like, okay, gratitude may mostly be good, narcissism may mostly be bad, and you could be wrong in both these parts, like I am, maybe, but just ask yourself the questions. Just ask. Never stop asking questions, as I've heard before. You have... I just hope that there would be conversations like this. You don't... Like, I hope that it would just be where we don't just get justice on every psychologist that screws us over. I don't know. Or every truly selfish psychologist versus narcissists who suffer. But I'm not even trying to over-justify that, but it's like, dang, this whole video looks like a propaganda that actually, I have no idea. Maybe I really am going anti-video edit trim or whatever. Because if this really is a 52-minute video, which it is about to be, then, why watch? But, yeah, I just... Dude, how long does this video take to upload, though? Is my question. Gratitude, in my opinion, I don't need to understand the facts as well. I'm supposed to, but gratitude, in my opinion, can be bad. Narcissism can be good. It's just... If that was the most illogical elaboration in 50 minutes you've ever heard, I at least want you to take away from this video to just question everything, even your beliefs, because I do that every day. I do that. Why do you think I even got to this point? If I was formerly someone who thought narcissism was only bad and gratitude was only good, and I still had to challenge those beliefs, even if irrationally, that still teaches you how to learn from them. I think with Vsauce making a video called "What if the sun suddenly disappeared?" That's an insightful approach to things, because you know that will never possibly happen. But by having discussions about even phantasmal things, however unobjective they can be, you can still learn from them. I think that's the big thing with spirituality, even religion, is that I mean, for a lot of people, including me, I'm more spiritual than religious. That just happens to be the case, because I just tend to be more in tune with law of attraction and retention and all that. But you have to be able to ask these questions. You have to be able to have these discussions with at least yourself. If you can't have them at all, at least have them with yourself, and just be the example you want to be. Don't at least be a better. It's the universal cliche of better yourself, not anyone else or in the world. But dang, and following the video I made 10 years ago, it's kind of an awkward shift. It's like 10 years later, I just make a video just as insecure and downright awkward, but just at least I can be understood this time a little bit. But maybe then too. But okay, I'll end off. I just need to talk about that. But get that on my chest. Hopefully, I've been emotional too. Because if I didn't get emotional expression yet, I will someday. People assume that I had emotions, but it's just I assumed I didn't. But and other things I mentioned in the video, like my ambivert self, and all that. But I think I'll stop at 50-15, and yeah, okay. So, or maybe 50-40, so we can do a ringtone like thing. So for this last minute, we'll prepare for the 40 seconds, and then, okay. So my mini topic for you, the question for this video is: do you think that do you think that you're limiting yourself because your freedom? And if so, what could you sacrifice for the future while still enjoying the present? And maybe that's not like, those two questions aren't the best, but I can go with them. Like, I know for myself that if I was going to have these weird opinions about narcissism and gratitude, then I was gonna screw myself over. But they're so worth it for my growth. They really are. Like, maybe not as a decision, but at least as a tension. I don't know. It's like a. If I want to rephrase that, I'll say something else. I'll say in the next 40 seconds. I'll say, would you rather make the right choice just because it's only good, or would you go all the way because it's the best for you? And that's up to anyone to decide for themselves. It's up to anyone. You'll know in your heart when something is true or right or good or best. You'll know. But even then, your frequency may be a little off center, like mine. You'll know what's best, but you'll still be unsure where to go. I've always been that confused. I'll end off the video. I love you guys. I gotta go for now, even though it's already been 50 minutes, but or more. Take care. Stay so, because someone's on the move. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys.